Hi, and thank you so much for joining me today for day 17 of 30 Days of Sketches with Christie's Beautiful Life. This is round 10 of 30 Days of Sketches. I think she's done an amazing job. Thank you very much for all of your hard work, Christie. So today's photo is another one from our summer holiday this year, a family summer holiday, of the hotel with Mum peering over the balcony of her room. And I'm using Fernwood for this. The photo, I don't know whether you noticed, had a very blue sky with some white clouds in it, so I wanted to bring out the navies and blues in this, and then there are lots of green plants at the bottom of the hotel, so bringing a bit of green in as well. This is a fabulous blocky sketch, and I'm sticking pretty close to the sketch today. So using the blues and greys and from the Fernwood collection, I've just pulled a few different pieces out. You saw me at the beginning just having a look to see how the papers go together, because I wasn't quite sure whether to use the ledger paper from the 6x8 paper pad or that cloudy paper with the cameras on the back, but I do end up using the clouds. So this paper that I've just cut the tag from, I definitely wanted it to go vertically rather than horizontally, so that had to be for the tag because of the shape of the paper that I'm left with. And then here I am just lifting the clouds up to check that that's what I want to use. Trying the ledger, but the colour's too close to the colour on that tag, so I'd go back to the clouds. So just using the photo as a guide to check how wide I want to cut this piece. Everything's done by eye. I don't bother measuring, so I couldn't give you measurements. And just checking that I'm happy with that, deciding exactly where to cut it, and then popping it back under the trimmer to cut that off. And there the base pieces sorted. So the photo is just a little bit too tall for me, so I'm just cutting a bit off the top and a bit off the bottom so it fits better there. And that's the main bit done. So now just adding the hole to the top of the tag using my single hole punch, and then I'm going to use my hole reinforcer punch from We Are Memory Keepers to add the reinforcer around that. I think it just finishes off the tag neatly, so just using a scrap of paper. Mispunch the first time, so I have to try again. It's difficult to see exactly where you're punching with this punch, and I don't like to just go in the middle of the paper because I hate waste. So just going to glue that down with my Nuvo Deluxe adhesive and then move on. So I just wanted to add something extra at the bottom of the sketch. You can see just at the top of the screen there are a couple of strips and there's a scallop strip. So I just wanted to tear a piece of paper to give a nod to that strip that she's got at the bottom of her photo mats there. And now I'm going to map the photo onto some tissue, just ordinary tissue paper. This is the tissue paper we use at Hey Little Magpie to wrap our orders in. So just using a piece of that, and I just keep it scrunched up in my drawer. It just adds a bit of texture and a bit of something behind the photo without it being as heavy as using a piece of paper. Now here I've just whizzed through that, but I've used my Tim Holtz edge distresser to distress all the edges of all the papers that we've got here, and now I'm going to use some double-sided tissue tape to glue those together. And as per usual, I lift something up. By the time I've got tape on it, I can't remember where it went. So just having a mess here to check that I'm happy and seeing where everything goes. And now that photo mat is all stuck together, I can add some sticks to foam pads to the photo just to raise it up above everything else to make it the focal point of the layout. So it's the 25mm foam pads that you see me using if you've watched previous videos. I do love these. Very quick and easy to use. and then sticking that down on there. And if you know me well, you'll know that the next thing I'm going to do is add some mixed media. So just grabbing my pencil, I'm just faintly drawing a mark inside the lines of this photo mat so that I know where to put the mixed media, and also it's easier to reposition the paper. So although I know that I'm going to focus the mixed media at the top of the page, I draw around the entirety of it just so that I can see exactly where to lay it back down. And I'm being brave today and just going straight in with my inks. Normally I would put these onto some packaging and then water them down and paint on, but I decided just go straight on the cardstock. So I've used speckled egg there. This one is chipped sapphire, and the middle, I can't remember what the middle colour is now. It's one of the other navy blues, though it's not the Uncharted Mariner, it's a different one. It'll probably come to me later on. So now I've squirted with water and I'm just going to start blending this paint around. I wanted to try and keep the colours separate, but in fact I do so much moving that they don't really. Next time I'll be more careful and try and spread the inks out a bit more before squirting the water, and then I won't have to do quite as much manoeuvring. I think I didn't really know exactly where I wanted the paint to go, and that was part of the problem, but you'll see I keep moving it out and spreading it further, and that's where all the colours mix together more. So just shaking the card and trying to make the water move on its own without using the brush too much at first, but then giving it a bit of a helping hand. And as I bring the photo back in, I realise that I want to move it further and further down. It's not always the way. I thought I was just going to keep it in those top corners, but keep going. And just moving that water around on the layout. And that's it, I'm pretty much happy with that. So I'm going to move that over to one side and leave it to dry and start working on a scalloped border for the bottom. This is the lightest or palest green in this collection, and it's still a very bright, vibrant green, which doesn't really go with the other colours that I've chosen for this layout. So I've punched out, using my 1-inch circle punch, a load of circles from it, and then I'm going to put them onto some packaging and use my white gesso just to tone down the green. So just using my finger, you can see I use way too much at the beginning, but I just spread it out, and this really tones down the colour and it makes these perfect to blend in with the rest of the papers that I'm using. So once these are all covered in the gesso and left to dry, I shall stick them onto that white scrap of card, the strip that's underneath the bag. I don't know whether you can see it there, to create the scallop. Here we go. So you can either add the glue to the strip and then just pop the half circles down, or do it as I'm doing and just glue each one individually. And there we go, and you can see how that gesso has really toned down that green and how well it now coordinates with the rest of the layout. So now I want to come in with some stamping, and I want to use this fern. Although they aren't ferns at the front of the hotel, there are so many ferns on Herm, which is where we were. I thought it would be a really nice thing to use. So I'm starting off with my bundled sage, just making sure that the stamp is well covered. This is the first time I've used this stamp. And then I'll keep repositioning the photo to check that I'm happy with the placement as I stamp. Just want a small cluster in each of these top corners, just like that. And it's very subtle because it's on the navy, so it doesn't show up massively, but it's just enough, and it just adds a bit more dimension. So just keep on inking, checking, stamping, re-inking, and then I'm going to do some down either the left and right hand side of these photo mats as well, just so they're just peeking out. Again, it's just adding a bit more something. And now I want to add some controlled splodges of this chipped sapphire. So I'm using the dots from the stamp set just to scatter these about, mainly on the blue, but some onto the photo mats as well, just in random places. I do struggle with random, so I'm trying my best. And then once that's done, I'm going to go back to that fern and come in with my iced spruce, which is just a much cooler green and a bit darker than the bundled sage. It doesn't look hugely different, particularly on that blue, but you can see a subtle difference, and particularly down towards the bottom you can see the difference. You see there it's much more of a grey blue of a green. And this is how I clean my stamps. I thought I'd leave this bit in to show you. I've always got my water sprayer to hand, and I've always got some kitchen paper. So I just spray the ink and then wipe it off with the kitchen paper. If you do it as soon as you've used the stamp, then you don't have a problem. It's when you leave things to dry for days that they become a bit more difficult. So if you just become more disciplined in cleaning up as you go, it protects your products much more. So here's that strip of semicircles that I made earlier. So just trimming off the excess cardstock because I don't need that, and that's there for another time. And going to glue these down underneath that bottom torn strip. So just trimming off the bits, well, pulling off the bits that I don't need, and then trimming off the excess card there at both ends. And then I shall use my fingernail to rough up the edges of these semicircles. I'd forgot to do it with the edge distresser, so just a quick rough up with my fingernails is fine. So next I'm going to grab these puffy phrase thickers, and I really want to use one of the golden arrows to point to my mum peeking out of her balcony at the top of the hotel there. It was so funny looking up and seeing her there when we were on the front lawn. So that arrow fits really nicely, and then I saw this word hello, so I thought that would fit beautifully there as well, and I like the way it curves around, so it's sort of in keeping with that curvy arrow as well. So I stick it down and then quickly realise that I'm going to have to do something because the photo is mounted onto foam, so it's not going to sit nicely over the edge of that photo there. So I've pulled out some fun foam. I cut off a very thin piece, and I was hoping to have some adhesive on one side, but because it was right at the very edge, the adhesive hadn't reached there. So I'm going to have to use some wet glue to glue this down. But I saw another YouTuber doing this. I think it might have been Missy Wooden, and this is a great way of going around curvy surfaces, whether it's a cut file or one of these puffy words or anything like that. It's nice and thin, and normally it's got the adhesive on the other side, so you can use the adhesive from the sticker to stick one side of the foam down and then just peel off the backing and stick it straight down onto your layout. Here I'm having to use wet glue, so I just pull back one at a time and stick them down. This O was being a bit troublesome, so I just had to stick the foam down to the actual sticker there as well. So there you see, just pulling pieces back and adding some glue. Because of course the bottom half of the word that's on the photo has adhesive on it already, so that stuck and kept it in place. It was just the parts where I had the foam that I had to add some more wet adhesive. So just looking through to see if there's anything else on here, and I find a couple of vines that I want to add to the bottom left hand corner to start a cluster there, and they work really nicely. Again, it's a bit of a fiddle to work out exactly how to layer to put the second one there, but I get there in the end. I do struggle sometimes with dimensional pieces trying to layer them. I don't want them to splay out too far, but I don't want them completely overlapping one another. And now into all the different ephemera pieces. I've just popped, I think there are two packs in this collection, and I've just popped them all into one box. And I find a vellum piece pretty quickly that goes there, and it just says don't forget to enjoy the view, because she's up there looking out on everybody. So I liked this. I think it's a poppy head seed. I just thought that looked quite nice as a structural piece up the right hand side of the photo. And we've got that vellum piece, there it is, that's the one that's going to go down there. I try out a few other pieces. I thought this might work for the top left hand corner cluster. I think that in the original sketch, I don't think I mentioned who it's by Carrie Simonds or Simons. It's a beautiful sketch. Thank you, Carrie. it looks like she's folded over a piece of paper and pinned it down for her corner, but I just wanted to add a few embellishments. Now, as I was looking through the ephemera here, I noticed a camera which was too big to add to that bottom cluster, and that reminded me of that cloud photo, had all the cameras on the back, so I've just fussy cut one of those to put in the bottom left-hand corner, and that works really nicely there. And this fern, again, I saw the fern in the ephemera pack, and this fern is fussy cut from the 12 by 12 fern paper that I'd used previously on another layout using this collection. I really like that paper. The ferns are coming in so handy. So I'm just going to start gluing things down now, and the tip with this vellum is to try and find a piece which is more solid. So the gold isn't see-through, it's not vellum. It doesn't have the properties of vellum with the see-through. So if you put your adhesive on the gold bits, then you won't have a problem with it. And I'm doing the same with this tag, which I've pulled out as well. I love that navy tag there with a bit of gold on top. So just using the adhesive on the gold bits to tack that down, because the rest of it's tucked underneath the other tag, so it's fine like that. So sticking that fern down as well, and then onto the chipboard. I wanted to add something where my journaling is going to go, and I love these little tabs. I try one at first, the one on the left hand side that says noted, but the green's a little bit dark compared to all the other colours we've got in the photo, and then I see that pale blue one says details, and that looks so much better. You'll see when I pop it on, just there. So very happy with that. And then I see these little gold dots, and we've got the gold foiling on the vellum, and we've got the gold of the arrow, so I just wanted to bring it down into this bottom section as well. So just adding 3 little dots around this cluster. And that's building up really nicely now. And then I find this, it was the end of a tag that I'd used, a label tab that I'd used previously, so I just tucked that under the edge of the photo and hand wrote my date. Again, bringing a bit of that green in. So now just bringing in some yarn to tie the tag hole. This is the bit I dread. I'm still not very good at it. It was okay in the end. I'm not overly happy with what I've done. Please, please, please give me your tips if you've got any. I wanted to try and thread the same thread through both of the tags here, and it sort of worked, but I think it could have been much better. So watch me fiddling and trying to even just get the end of the thread through that tag hole. And it's a huge hole, so I don't know why I couldn't, but I do struggle. So this is where I'm thinking, what do I do? Do I tie it together? Do I have to thread it through the hole? Decide it's probably better threaded through, and then end up tying it in a bow. See, I'm wondering whether to just leave it trailing off, but no matter which way I leave it to trail off, it just doesn't look right. So here we go with the bow. So just trimming off the excess pieces, and then I'll go in with a bit of my Nouveau Deluxe adhesive again, just to pop over the knot, and that just keeps it from unravelling at all, and also keeps it in place. And I'm just calling that done now. Had enough. So now the journaling, I'm just going to write it straight onto this photo mat, and it just says, "You stayed in the crow's nest in the White House Hotel for the first time this year and thoroughly enjoyed it. It was so strange seeing you up there." It was my mum who was up in that room with my dad. So now going through the sticker book and just seeing if there's anything I can add to that top left hand corner. I find this little tab that says "Fill your day with joy" and a beautiful gold heart on a blue circle, but I want to bring some of the darker navy into that, so I'm just looking through to see what else I can find to add to that. And there it is, and that just says "today," which is fine as a sentiment for this layout. Just fiddling to get that straight. And then another quick look to see what else. I noticed this fern, so I think that'll add another texture and dimension to these ferns that we've got stamped at the bottom. So that goes down there. And a little gold vine, again bringing a bit more of that gold in. And because I've put one on the left, I want to mirror it on the right. But because they've got quite a big white border, I didn't really like it against the pattern paper, so I just tucked it under that fern, and I know it's there. So that's it. Thank you so much for joining me. Check the description box down below for everybody else who's joining in. I'd love it if you'd subscribe to my channel if you enjoy watching me. And other than that, I shall see you tomorrow for the next sketch. Thanks so much. Bye.